You're sitting in your car after a meeting you ran well, not even well, perfectly. Everyone left satisfied. The decisions got made. The next steps are clear. You should feel actually accomplished. Instead, you're just sitting there. You're not exhausted. You're not overwhelmed. You just don't want to go back inside. And that's the part you don't quite know what to do with. Actually, that happened to one of my clients. That's why I'm talking about this. Because nothing is technically wrong. You built this life on purpose. You worked for it. You chose it. From the outside, it makes sense. So why does something in you keep leaning towards something else? Maybe this week you finally admitted it. Maybe you said out loud that you want something different or bigger or just more alive. And now you can't unknow it. And if you've been listening the last few weeks, we've talked about what happens when other people question your growth. Today, I want to talk about what happens when you start questioning it yourself. Because sometimes the thing keeping you stuck isn't confusion. It's the quiet feeling that wanting more might make you ungrateful. I call that the gratitude bind. And if you're in it, you already know how subtle it is. Welcome to the Joy Shift. I'm Kylie Suarez. Let's talk about it. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why knowing what you want and not acting on it isn't a willpower problem. It's a specific kind of stuck that happens when you've built a good life and still want more. And those two things feel like they're not allowed to be true at the same time. Once you see it for what it is, you stop apologizing for the wanting. Here's what we're covering: how the gratitude bind forms, why it hits hardest for women who are good at holding everything together, and the first honest step you can take without blowing up everything you've built. So let me tell you what the gratitude bind actually sounds like, because I promise you already know it. It sounds like I should be grateful for what I have. So who am I to want more? It sounds like other women would kill for this life. What's wrong with me that it's not enough? It sounds like gratitude, except it's not. It's guilt wearing gratitude's clothes. Here's the thing: you built this life on purpose. You didn't fall into it. You earned it. You showed up for it. You sacrificed for it. That's why this is so complicated. You think wanting more would feel like excitement. Instead, it feels like betrayal. You were the one everyone counted on. You made the smart choices, and now the very stability you created has become the thing keeping you from your next chapter. Not because the life is wrong, but because wanting more feels like saying it wasn't enough. And that feels like the most ungrateful thing in the world. So you stay, not because you can't move, because moving feels like betraying everything you've built, everything you should be thankful for, everything other people see when they look at your life and say, you have it all. You do have a lot and you want more. Both of those things can be true at the same time. That's not greed, that's growth. Now, I want to name something that gets missed all the time. There are two completely different kinds of stuck, and we treat them like they're the same problem. They are not. Trying to solve one with the tools for the other is why so many of us stay frozen way too long. The first kind is not knowing. You feel a pull towards something, but you can't name it. The shape of it is blurry. You're in the fog, and the work there is excavation, digging through decades of doing what everyone else needed to find out what you actually want. If that's where you are, go back and listen to episode 3 on identity archaeology. That's your episode. But the second kind, that's knowing and not moving. And this one is harder in a specific way because you don't get the comfort of confusion anymore. You can't call it discernment. You can't tell yourself you just need a little more time. When you know you're still not moving, staying still starts to feel like a choice you're making on purpose. And living with that awareness day after day, that is a different kind of painful. I know this because I lived it. When I was writing my first romance novel at 52, I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to keep going. I knew the writing was waking something up in me. I knew I wanted to stop hiding it, and I did nothing about it for almost a year. Not because I didn't know, because knowing meant I'd run out of excuses, and I wasn't ready to face what was actually underneath. So let's go there. When I talk to women who are stuck in the knowing but not moving place, the first thing I look for isn't the obvious stuff, not time, not money, not logistics. Those are real, but they're usually not the actual block. What I find almost every single time is one of two things. The first one, staying stuck, is actually giving you something. I know that sounds like backwards. Stay with me. The researching, the planning, the I'll start Monday, the staying busy with everyone else's stuff. That pattern is giving you something: safety, protection from the risk of being truly seen, Not moving means you never have to fail at the thing that actually matters to you. Not moving means you never have to find out if you have what it takes. And a dream that you haven't tested yet can never be proven wrong. So here's the question. What is staying stuck protecting you from? What do you get to avoid as long as you don't move? What stays safe? For me, as long as I kept my writing secret, I never had to be judged for it. I never had to hear someone say, that's cute, but is it serious? I never had to reconcile being a former CPA who manages her husband's urology practice with being a woman who writes love stories. The hiding kept me safe from having to own all of who I was out loud. That's a real payoff, and I had to see it before I could let it go. The second one is the deeper one. And yet, the thing that stops most women isn't fear of failure. It's actually something quieter, a belief running in the background that says someone like you doesn't get to have this. You can have the clearest vision in the world, the right timing, good people in your corner, and that quiet belief will stop you every time, right at the edge of real. And it doesn't sound like fear. It doesn't announce itself. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like, who am I to want this when I already have so much? What makes me think I'm the kind of woman who gets to have this? This is selfish. There are people who need me. See how it wraps itself in gratitude? That's the bind. Here's what I've learned. Accomplished women struggle most with this because for decades, your value has been tied to performance, to productivity, to how well you hold everything together. So when desire shows up without a measurable outcome attached, no promotion, no income, no title, just aliveness, some part of you doesn't trust it as a real goal. It doesn't feel like something you're allowed to put on the calendar. That's not weakness. That's not just who you are. It's something you learned a long time ago. And learned things can change. For decades, our worth was measured by what we produced for other people, by our results, by how well we kept everything running. So wanting something that doesn't serve anyone else, wanting it just because it lights you up, that feels unearned, like you haven't done enough yet to deserve the wanting. And you've been living inside that for so long, it doesn't feel like a belief anymore. It feels like the truth. It's not the truth. Turns out it never was. It's a story, and stories can change. I want to be real with you about something. A lot of what we talk about on this show, you can absolutely do on your own. You can journal through the permission trap. You can do the excavation work from identity archaeology. You can take micro steps without anyone watching. But this layer is different because this isn't about strategy. It's about identity. And identity works requires someone outside your own head. The reason is simple. You cannot see your own blind spots. It no longer feels like a belief. It feels like truth. And that's why it's so hard to challenge. And when something feels like reality, you don't question it. You just work around it. You explain it. You make it make perfect sense. I did this for years. I had a whole story about why keeping my writing hidden was the practical thing to do, the smart thing. And every bit of that story sounded logical. None of it was the actual truth. The actual truth was that I didn't believe I was allowed to be more than one thing. I couldn't see that by myself. I needed someone to reflect it back to me, someone who could sit with me in it without trying to fix me or rush me past it. When you finally have someone who can be with you in the real truth of where you are, something starts to shift. The part of you that thinks it doesn't deserve this gets to say it out loud, not in your journal where you can argue with yourself, out loud to another person. And something about being heard like that starts to loosen the grip of it. Then another part of you gets to respond, the part that says, can I say for certain you don't deserve this? The part of you running that story is the same part doing the questioning. You need someone outside that loop. What I watch happen over and over when a woman is truly seen, she stops hiding from herself, not because someone gave her the answers, because someone made it safe enough to find them. I don't want to leave you without something to hold on to this week. So here's a practice, simple. It will feel uncomfortable. That's how you know it's working. First, open your calendar. Look at your week. Is there even 1 hour scheduled for the version of you that you say you want to become? Second, write down the thing you know you want, but aren't moving toward. Don't dress it up. Write the real thing. Finish the sentence and don't edit yourself. I'm not moving toward it because dot, dot, dot. Tell the truth. Then look at what you wrote and ask, is this actually true? Or does it just feel true? There is a real difference between a fact and a story you've been carrying for so long you stop questioning it. Ask yourself, what is staying stuck protecting me from? You might not be able to answer that fully on your own. That's okay. That's actually the point. The goal isn't to solve it right now, it's to start looking at it, naming that something is there. That first move. You don't have to overhaul your life by Friday. You just need one honest moment with yourself. One honest moment is enough to start. If you're sitting in the gratitude bind right now, if you've been telling yourself you should just be thankful and stop wanting more, I need you to hear me. Gratitude and desire are not opposites. You can love your life and still feel the pull towards something more. You can honor everything you've built and still reach for what's next. The women who've broken through this didn't suddenly find more courage. They found the story that was running quietly underneath everything. And once they could see it, it stopped running them. That's the joy shift. Try this within the next 72 hours. Take one small step. Take one small private action toward the thing you know you want. Not an announcement, not a declaration, a step. Something just for you that no one else even has to know about. Movement builds identity, and identity builds courage. If you've been trying to think your way out of this alone, journaling, researching, listening to every podcast you can find, including this one, and you keep circling the same spot, that's not a failure of effort. Actually, it's one of the most honest things you can admit to yourself. Some layers genuinely cannot be moved from the inside. That's not a weakness. That's just the wrong tool for this particular job. If today's episode names something you've been living in, share it with one woman who needs to hear it, please. She may not even realize she's in the gratitude bind. Sometimes we just need someone to hand us the words. And if the idea of having someone witness you through this, someone outside your own head, is something that won't leave you alone after today, if you've been knowing and not moving for months, that's exactly the work I do with women privately. Not to blow up your life, to build the next chapter on purpose. The link is in the show notes. I'll see you Friday.